ICI motto.
Yaesha supteshu jagrati Yaesha supteshu jagrati Kamam 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 Pursho nirvimanaha Tadeva shukram Tada Brahma Tadeva Amrita Mujjate Tasmin Lokaha Shataha Sarve Taduna Kaschana
Faculty of the session, CA Milan Mody. Chairperson of Gandhinagar branch, CA Chintan Thakkar. Chairperson of Bhuj branch, CA Vijay Thakkar, sorry. My council colleague, CA Shida Jain. The moderator of panel, which is going to start at around 6 p.m., CA Kaival Shah. All participants, good evening, all of you. It's a really pride pleasure to have all of you on 6th day of our Introduction Symposium. And today's topic is one of the most important topic. We are expert of working. We are expert of execution. However, when it comes about delivering, how it comes of communicating results to the stakeholders, to the management, to the directors, somehow we are not coming up to the mark. The reporting, what to communicate, when to communicate, how to draft. If we become master of these things, the figure of our indirect fees can be increased by one more zero. So today we are having expert faculty, Milan Bhai. Before I hand over charge to him, I request the Chintan Bhai and Vijay Bhai to share view, because they are the persons who have also promoted this particular Internet Symposium to respective branches. They believe that the members at every branch at Gandhinagar, Bhuj branch also interested to learn about these topics, and I'm thankful to both of them for extending them warm welcome to ICI WRC and these activities. Requesting Chintan Bhai to share his words.
Thank you, Chintan sir. Thank you for making us part of this wonderful session on the making us part of this wonderful session, sir. And it is our truly privilege that WRC is organizing such a seminar with stalwarts of the profession, we can say, and who are the master of this subject. And that is also an online. So this is very good initiative being taken by the WRC and you, sir, that so that every from the members from every nook and the corner can join it, because we understand it to conduct to have such a very nominated faculty at smaller locations like us at Gandhinagar or maybe at Bhuj also. Vijay will agree with me. May not have been possible without taking this session online. So really thank you for organizing such a wonderful session, sir, and making us part of this beautiful session. And thanks to all the participants who is charging us for making arranging all such a nice seminars. So really thankful to them also, and thankful to you, Chintan sir, for making us part of this, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chintan Bhai. It was really wonderful to have you here. Requesting Vijay Bhai, the chairperson of Bhuj branch, to address.
Good evening, everyone. I'm CA Vijay Thakkar, Chairman Bhuj branch. First of all, I would like to thank Chintan Patel sir, because with whose vision and with whose efforts today we are meeting jointly for this internal audit synopsis. Because क्या है कि normally internal audit का जो भी प्रोग्राम होता है उसमें 1 या 2 दिन का मैक्सिमम होता है, बट सर ने बहुत अच्छी तरीके से प्रयत्न किया सो दैट हमको पूरे का पूरा इंटरनल ऑडिट स्टार्टिंग से लेके एंडिंग तक का इन डेप्थ नॉलेज मिले. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वेरी मच थैंकफुल टू चिंतन सर फॉर ऑर्गेनाइजिंग सच एन वंडरफुल इवेंट, एंड secondly thankful to RCM Pinky Kedia ma'am, Sweta Jain, Kaival Shah, moderator, and faculty for the day, Milan sir. And to the participant I would like to say कि नॉर्मली हम क्या करते हैं कि सीए नॉर्मली टैक्स ऑडिट में ज्यादा होते हैं, दैट इज स्टैट्यूटरी टैक्स ऑडिट, इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न्स एक्सेट्रा. इंटरनल ऑडिट इज सच एरिया के नॉर्मली छूने से डरते हैं. तो मैं एक ऐसा कोट कहना चाहूंगा कि जीवन की सबसे बड़ी खुशी उसी काम को करने में है, जीवन की सबसे बड़ी खुशी उस काम को करने में है जिसे लोग कहते हैं तुम नहीं कर सकते, जिसे लोग तुम नहीं कर सकते हैं. तो बहुत सारे लोग ऐसा कहते होंगे कि इंटरनल ऑडिट आपके कप ऑफ टी नहीं है, वो बहुत प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज मांगता है. बट मैं ऐसा कहूंगा कि उसमें बहुत अच्छी खुशी मिलेगी. जो सपोज हमको ऐसा इन डेप्थ नॉलेज मिला है तो हम खुशी खुशी वो कर पाएंगे. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you, Vijay bhai. I think the last line which you mentioned has really made a lot of impact. I think we should all try to do something where it is impossible, because impossible word says I am possible, and that is the spirit which we all should look after. I also welcome my council colleague C. Pinky Kedia ji to this August gathering. Not taking much time further, we all are so much keen to really listen to the faculty. I request my council colleague C. Shita Jain to share her words and also the profile of the faculty.
Thank you so much, Chintan bhai. A very good evening to everyone present on screen, off the screen. And first, let me congratulate to you, Chintan bhai, for designing this beautiful internal audit symposium. Definitely the response which we are receiving since last from 5 sessions, it is amazing. So really congratulations to you for success of this program, and looking forward such more events in future also. Secondly, would like to congratulate to both the chairman, Bhuj branch and Gandhinagar branch, for extending their support. They have proved in real sense that branches are extended arms of WIRC. And with the support of both of them, we could organize this program and we could get this gathering. So really, thank you so much, both the chairmen. Coming to the pleasant task of today's introduction of our speaker, it's really a privilege for me to introduce Milan Mody, sir. He is in audit practice since last 26 years and joint managing partner in NA Shah Associate LLP. He's a All India rank holder, intermediate 38th rank, and final CA is 36th rank. He is expert in statutory audit, management audit, due diligence review, and IFRS Ind AS, and has made more than 55 presentations at various professional forum and platforms, including WRC, ICI, BCS, and others. His contribution towards ICI is huge. He is technical reviewer of annual reports for ICI Award on excellence in financial reporting for 4 consecutive years from 15-16 to 2021. Also is a regular contributor to WRC reference manual more than 5 years now. Was part of the group which incorporated in AQMM in peer review manual. He is author for various articles published in newspaper, online portals, and professional journals on technical topics related to audit. Also is a co-author to publication by Taxman and CTC on Caro. So I am limiting myself here only because Milan sir told me strictly that please keep it very brief and short, and I don't want to come between Milan sir and the participants. So with this brief introduction, I welcome you, Milan sir, at the platform of WIRC, and thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today. Over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Good evening, participants. Thank you, Chintan and Shweta madam, And thank you all the other people who are there on the dais, or what I can say, the screen at this point of time. I think as Chintan rightly mentioned, doing audit is only 50% of the work. The balance 50% is getting your message across to the audience and getting the right message, which they understand, and based on which they take the right action. That's what is the final objective of internal audit. If you have an observation and if you communicate it poorly, it may result into a wrong action by the management, and that's not the desired objective. So I think it's a very important topic. As some people say, packaging is sometimes more important than the product itself. I would not say that, but I would say at least it is equivalent or equally important. And as chartered accountants, we were always compared with MBA in terms of our presentation and our other skills, soft skills. So I think this is one opportunity where we can uplift our abilities, skills, and ensure that we are no less than any other MBA. We not only have the content, but also the right means and the mechanism to communicate it. I'll start my presentation. Just let me know whether the screen is properly visible or not.
Visible.
Sorry, I'll have to escape this because here the slides are not changing. Just give me a minute. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay, Milan bhai, we can go ahead.
Yeah. So as everybody said, internal audit is one more area of profession. And I think because our education training, our articleship, we are quite well suited to do a significant portion of the internal audit. There are areas in internal audit where now the expectation is that you also look at the engineering side of it or other side of it, in which case you will have to collaborate with the right team members to ensure that your report is that much more comprehensive. So IT is another area, information technology related review, which is also now getting included under the internal audit. There is a lot of areas like risk management, or understanding the risk which the company comes across. All those areas are areas which the auditors can and the chartered accountants can very well conduct for the company and present their observations. It is very important that before you communicate, first you understand it correctly and you know your audience. So as this saying says, that if you talk in a language which he understands, it will go to the head. But if you talk to him in his language, the language in which the board of directors understand, the language in which the CFO understands, the language in which the CEO understands, then it will go to the heart. And I don't think it's not possible. For example, the CEO would want to look at it from a macro perspective. The CFO would want to look at it from a compliance and accounting perspective. The board of directors would want to look at it from a strategic perspective. So if you know the objective with which somebody is going to look at your report or your observation, you can suitably amend it to bring that perspective or that angle to that person, so that they are able to understand your perspective that much better. What are we going to cover today? So we are going to cover what is the significance of internal audit, the key elements and flow of internal audit report, common mistakes which people do, which leads to an ineffective communication of internal audit, practical tips and suggestive templates and examples. I have included almost 14 to 15 different examples, illustrations and templates. And these are very, very useful. So try to, make the maximum use out of it. In a way, I have given away my own secret when I draft my report. How do I do? And I hope that sharing will help you upgrade your own understanding of how effective communication can be. And then obviously the key takeaways. Whatever work you do, you are engaged by either the audit committee or by the board of directors, or if it's a private limited company, by the owners, or if it's a partnership or a proprietary firm, by the owners of the entity. what is the objective? What is the significance of the report? Whatever work you do, it's not always possible that during a verbal communication, you are able to share everything. And there are obviously responsibilities attached with internal auditor. And hence, it is important that the internal audit report, it communicates the effectiveness of governance, risk management, and the control process. It allows the users of that internal audit report to understand the audit issues and take corrective action on a timely basis. It also articulates how the audit was planned, how the area was selected, what was the sample size, what were the other nuances, or what were the other methodology which the auditor adopted while doing his work, his or her work. The internal audit report, if it is correctly drafted, it would also show the depth in which the auditor has gone and his own or her own knowledge and the willingness to partner with the management for overall improvement of the organization and for achieving the objectives. It has to provide an assurance which the management can rely on. In fact, the service line tag is that it is an assurance services. Assurance services is to tell the management, give them an assurance that everything is in order. So when I speak of this thing, I always say that, you know, there should be 3 reactions which you should look at. Once you communicate your internal audit observation to the some person who is hearing you or reading your report, he should either relax, okay, everything is in order, or he should get up and say, I need to take action on so many points because these were the areas where I thought there are controls, but they are not working effectively. So it has to have an impact which either makes that person say, okay, I'm confident that my systems and processes are in order, or that they are not in order and I need to take the corrective action. Before we go a little more on the report writing, let me share with you that there are 2 standards presently which are more prevalent. One is the standard by the IIA, which is the Institute of Internal Auditors, and it has a lot of other data along with these standards on the website. So if anybody wants to go through that, they should go through the IIA website. And there is obviously the Institute of Chartered Accountants, which has drafted the standard on internal audit. On the right-hand side of this table, I have also given to you that what are the standards which are relevant for the reporting. So you have SIA 110 on the nature of assurance, and we will go into detail on that. 370 is on reporting results. 390 is on monitoring and reporting of prior audit issues. This is something which is important. If you have reported, if it's a continuous quarterly audit, then what happened in the earlier quarter and what is the status of that subsequently while you are doing the current audit. There are many more standards in IIA, which is reporting to senior management, communicating results, criteria for communication, quality of communication, disseminating results, overall opinion, monitoring progress, and communication, the acceptance of risk. We will come to this last point also a little later in detail. As internal auditors, you may also come across a fraud which you unearth or you identify, and you are the first person who has identified that fraud. Then you should obviously look at the, depending on who is involved in the fraud, you would have obligation in terms of reporting that in a particular manner. And obviously, Companies Act has its own requirement on fraud, which is more on the statutory auditors than the internal auditors. Yeah, we'll go ahead with the next thing, which is what I spoke about, SA 110. And there are 2 types of assignment. One is the assurance assignment and one is other assignments, which is routine internal audit. In an assurance assignment, you are giving some level of actual opinion or your assurance. Within assurance, there are 2 bifurcations, as you would see in the case of certificates also, which is a reasonable assurance or a limited assurance. In a reasonable assurance, it is talking about the effectiveness of those controls. And in case of limited assurance, it's more like a negative, that you have not come across anything which would make you believe that the controls are not effective. So these are the two types of assurance assignments. Generally, after acceptance, you do not change an assurance assignment to a other than assurance assignment, nor do you change from reasonable to limited assurance. And if that change is there, then it should be followed by a proper justification. This is just to give you an understanding that where does the audit report also will have to cover what you have agreed upon. So if it is an assurance, you will have to finally make your comment in terms of the engagement letter which you have signed with the client. Let's look at the flow of an internal audit report, and then we will go to the observations also, as that is the topic. But the flow of the report has to be, it should talk about the objectives, scope and approach of assignment. This second on the middle top row is something which is very important and people miss out. Recognition of positive aspects noted during review. Now, audit is generally understood as, pointing out deviations. But if you are able to also give an assurance that these things are correctly done in an organization, that would help your credibility amongst the team members. And they will say, okay, this person is being fair and unbiased in its assessment, and not only pointing out areas where non-compliance is there. So the second, this point of positive aspects during review is something which is very important. Giving an overall analysis or a conclusion or an assessment of what you feel as an internal auditor on the areas which is audited is something which is very relevant. It's like a macro perspective, a bird's eye view on that area. We will again come back to some of how do you communicate that, but this is something which should form a part of your audit report. Observations, root cause and recommendation. This is the heart of your audit report, which is each and every observation. Again, the observations have to be arranged and classified in a proper manner. Two of the most common ways in which it is classified is either in terms of the risk and the priority, or in terms of area. So in an area, you go, the complete cycle. If it's procure to pay, you start with the indent and you end with the vendor payment. So that's the complete cycle, and your observation flow in the similar flow of the events which happen while a procurement function is being conducted. Prior period issues and action taken report. I did touch upon this, that it's very important to know that is it actually bringing the desired change, or is it only on paper? And this obviously depends on the tone at the top and the attitude of the approach of the team members in implementing the internal audit observations or recommendations. The last section which would be there, or maybe the first section depending on who's the audience, is the executive summary, which is usually a separate document for the board and the stakeholders. The IIA or SIA do not give a specific format in which an internal audit report has to be prepared. So unlike your statutory audit where there are standard paragraphs, there need not be the same sequence and standard paragraphs in an internal audit. But if you are able to, consistently as an organization have some of your own formats which are understood, it obviously means a lot to the auditee, because then they know where to look for which type of conclusion. Yeah. What is the objective and the scope of internal audit? So the objective should be the purpose of the specific assignment. So it could be either a routine internal audit, or it could be a deep dive on one particular area. The scope, and it should also talk about the planned audit activities. So for example, if you did a sample test of sales voucher, or if you did a verification of inventory at a distributor, or if you did a reconciliation of the confirmations received versus the book balances, then all those planned activities should form part of the scope, as well as the limitation on the scope. It should be very clearly spelled out what you were not able to do or what you are not required to do. Approach, what was the work methodology which was adopted? The audit activities conducted and the sampling. So for example, when we talk about audit activities, it could be, as you said, you did vouching, you did observation, you did analytics, whatever you did, whether it was data analytics, whether it was the verification, that should be mentioned in your approach, as well as the sampling. Now, this sampling is another area which is very important. With the change in technology or the use of technology, you can increase your sample size to almost 100% of data. So if you're doing a particular test, let's take an example. You are saying you are looking at employee data, and certain employees whose Aadhaar details have not been submitted while they were their KYC was done or while they were on board. You can always take 2 files from the database, compare it, and tell places where the Aadhaar card details of the employee is not available. Now, why is this relevant? Obviously, we are aware that some of the compliances of PF require on the site the linkage of the Aadhaar number so that the company can then pay the PF dues. So sampling, whether it is 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, would all depend on auditor to auditor, as well as what the client has insisted at the time of the engagement. And as I said, in certain cases, it goes up to 100% due to use of technology. Objective and scope of the internal audit should be consistent with the objective of internal audit and engagement plan, as I said earlier also. Adequate justification should be mentioned for scope limitation, and the approach section should include brief synopsis of activities being conducted and the processes being reviewed. So you can give a small background that you were looking at, let's say, if you're looking at a sales function, what was your starting point? What was your ending point? Did you look at the ERP? Did you not look at the ERP? If there is a peripheral point of sales software or any other software which is attached on top of SAP or Navision, whether you also looked at that software or did not look at that software. Let's look at, sorry, I spoke about this earlier also, that recognizing the positive points. And these are few examples which are given over here. If there is a strong internal control, so if the control is well designed and it is being followed, so you had taken 10 samples and you found in all 10 samples the purchase orders about 10 lakhs were to be approved by 2 people, including the MD, and you found no deviation or no non-compliance, it's just something which is positive. So you can say that all the purchase order approval processes were properly followed. Or let's say there were no delays in any statutory due payment. Again, you can make a positive statement. If there were earlier points on which action was required and they have taken that action, you can also give that as a appreciation to the team, that the internal audit, because when you're giving that appreciation, you are indirectly appreciating your own self, that your observation was relevant, the management took action on it, and now it is implemented. Obviously, one of the key things is the level of support which you receive from the auditee. And if that support is good, they have been transparent, they have shared everything, then you appreciate the team members for being courteous as well as accommodative. The overall analysis section is what I spoke about earlier also, is something which is very relevant. And let's look at some of the sub-points or few points which should be considered while talking about the overall assessment. So you can use a dashboard or a table to depict the number of observations according to risk rating and importance. So this is a very common thing which is followed. Let's say you have payroll as an area which you did an audit. You would say there are 5 observations in total. One which is high risk, one which is medium risk, one which is low risk, one which is information in nature, and one which is recommendatory in nature. So what you are giving is, you are at the beginning of an audit, you are giving some sort of a preparedness to the audience that what is going to come forward. Another way which people do is the key recommendation, corrective actions requiring immediate action may be summarized. You can use just bullets to say these are the top 3 points which are relevant and for which immediate action is warranted. So, for example, let's say overtime payment is not in accordance with the law. Then it would be your first point, that overtime payment is made at a normal wage rate instead of a revised or a multiple wage rate. So this is something which requires immediate action. What happens is the audit may have multiple observations, but what is the key for the audience with which you are dealing with is something which you need to understand and use your experience. You can use trend. Trend is basically a positive or a negative trend as compared to the previous audit period. And it may show a better understanding. So for example, what was it earlier? There was, let's say, 15% deviation or 15% non-compliance earlier, and now it is only 5% non-compliance. It's not completely resolved, but still the path is correct, the direction is correct, and there is an improvement. But let's say it's vice versa, in which case the controls have deteriorated, the effectiveness of controls have further gone down. And that is something which the management should be concerned about. So you can compare the two periods in terms of the observation and the criticality, and based on that also say whether overall efforts are being made to move towards a better and a robust systems and processes. You can summarize the financial impact of your observation. So let's say if the ITC credit was not taken. Now, if ITC credit was not taken, was it because it was an human oversight? Was it because of negligence? Was it because of awareness of an issue? Whatever may be the reason. So you can say, you can quantify, case rupees so much of ITC credit was not taken. Or you can say you found deviation in so much percentage of cases. Again, this helps you. You can also give impact in terms of saying that these statutory dues were delayed and this would result in an additional interest and penalty of rupees so much. This would help the reader not only understand your observation, but also understand the implication from a financial perspective. And that understanding that gives the seriousness or the gravity of the issue can be understood. So let's look at the how do you look at the various observations. Give me a minute. Yeah, so the observation, root cause, and recommendations. Just giving an observation will not suffice. You have to try to find out what was the reason for that observation. So if there was a delay in payment of, let's say, PF, what was the reason? Was it a cash shortage? Company did not have the funds? Was it because it was not computed correctly and then there was a rectification? Was it again the interpretation of the law or the awareness and the knowledge of the law? Was it a training issue or was it mere carelessness? So try to find out the root cause of the observation. Let's take another example, that the expenses were beyond the prescribed limit. So let's say there is a travel limit or a conveyance limit, and the actual expenses was beyond that limit, and it did not get identified or flagged off. Now, it did not get identified because the person who is approving did not remember verifying it. Was the standard operating procedure clearly spelled out that limit? Is the person who put the claim responsible? Is it the person who approved the claim responsible? Is it the accounts in charge which accounted that travel claim responsible? Or was it the system which should not have allowed such items to be permitted to be entered? So try to find the root cause and based on that, give your recommendation. All observations should be backed by adequate facts. In fact, in our case, when we do our reports, most of our observations are followed by annexures, which give examples along with voucher number, the party, the details, the amount, voucher type, observation. So it has all those details in that annexure. So if you say, let's say that customer bills about 2 lakhs did not have the customer's PAN number. Now, if that is your observation, then you will have to give which sales invoice, what was the amount, who was the party, and the fact that there was no PAN number, what are the implications. So these type of annexures are very relevant. I've seen sometimes the clients start with the annexures rather than the observation, because annexures contain the minute details based on which the observation is formed. Each observation should be listed in the order of significance based on risk and impact. I spoke about this earlier also. High risk observation, which is important, medium risk, and then the low risk. We'll come back to how to assign the risk. Observation may be drafted either in a positive manner, focused towards enhancement, or negative manner. Let's take an example. Fixed asset register is not updated. Now you can write the fixed asset register is not updated, which is a negative manner, or the company should endeavor to update the fixed asset register within a time frame of 3 months from the purchase of assets. Again, it's the way you communicate. Depending on the criticality and the type of assignment you have, you may choose a more positive tone vis-a-vis a negative tone to say something which is not done versus something should have been done. Observations are also bifurcated into whether these are new or fresh observations, or they are repeat or carry forward observations. I've seen organization where the same observation is repeated multiple times, then it moves from a medium risk to high risk. Because knowingly, if you ignore taking corrective action, itself means that the risk level is high. The draft observations which you have, or the pointers, should be shared with the management and the process owner. There are two advantages of this. Once, if you share it with the process owner, they have a buy-in of your internal audit report. When you are discussing that at a later stage, then they do not come back and say, sorry, we will come back to you because we were not aware about this earlier. So this helps in reducing errors also, misunderstanding, disagreement, and saves time. So it's very important that you explain that observation to the process owner and take their in-principle approval. There are cases where they may not agree, in which case you will have to be very more clearer when you are communicating, and your examples and illustrations should be able to validate your conclusion. Root cause, again, is a real immediate effect and potential effect should be considered while drafting your observation and recommendation. What do you mean by real and potential? This is by way of an example that the effect was, there was a splitting of a purchase order. So 10 lakhs was a limit and the purchase department wanted to give orders worth 18 lakhs. So they split it into 9 lakhs each, gave 2 orders instead of 1 order of 18 lakhs, by which they circumvented the control process which the company had implemented. Now, splitting of a PO is a cause, but and the effect is that it overrides the approval process. So, okay, if it overrides the approval metrics, what is the consequence of that? So ask the another question, isse kya hoga? What will happen on based on that? So usse kya hoga ki maybe there is favoritism, maybe there is partiality of giving it to a particular vendor, and you buy something which you do not really require. The approving authority has been kept in that manner because that approving authority adds certain value while giving that approval, either in terms of the vendor selection or the quality or the quantity or any other reason, or payment terms, delivery terms, liquidated damages, whatever they are. Here, this will result, or the real effect could be terms which are not favorable to the company or biasness or favoritism. So you need to understand that the immediate effect could be different and the ultimate effect could be slightly more critical than the immediate effect. Let's look at the writing style. So we spoke about observation should be grouped by topic, cause, effect, or risk. So topic is all payroll related observations at one side. Or when you talk about risk, all high risk points together. Or you say, or all ERP failure related observations at one particular place. So where it's an issue with the design of a control or an issue with the way the ERP has been configured, then you're combining all those causes together at one place. Or effect related, wherever there is a financial loss or a leakage, all leakage related points are combined at one particular place. So that leakage could be either in purchase or it could be in sales, both places, but you are combining leakage related observations together. So these are 4 different types, and there could be more, based on which the observations can be categorized, grouped, and they can be bunched together. Wording should be simple and free of technical jargons. Sentences should be short and to the point. It's very important that you are to the point. Active voice should be used instead of passive to extent possible, reduce vagueness and any misunderstanding. If you do not know what is active voice, passive voice, today there are tools available where you can put your sentence and you will get a better version of that same sentence being formed. So Grammarly is there. Even if you put something in Chat GPT, it will give you a suggestion of how you should redraft it. Tone of the report should be constructive and not negative or adversarial in nature. You should not be accusing somebody unless it's a reporting on a particular fraud. Charts, graphs, and tables should be used to highlight key issues. Again, this is a very important point which I spoke about. Track issues which you reported earlier, whether corrective action is taken, and what are the open points which are still pending. Evidence should be obtained to support closure of the earlier issues. Corrective action which are not implemented due to reason beyond management control should be highlighted, and a new time frame should be decided by which it will be implemented. So let's say if there is a change in the ERP and the vendor is not supporting, or vendor has not done its part of the job in time, then it would fall under a similar category. While tracking prior period items or issues, the underlying condition, whether the risks still exist or not, should be verified. It's possible that automatically that observation is resolved because you are no longer into that activity, or that risk no longer exists. So for example, let's say earlier there were more online payments, and suddenly the company moved from online payments to some other method of payment like issuing checks. Then the situation under which that control was relevant is no longer prevalent because they stopped online payments. It should be ideally vice versa, but I'm just giving as an example. If the issue has not been addressed, and written representation should be obtained from the management, that they accept this risk and they should be communicated to the board. I'll give you an example. There was this one hotel, and outside every hotel you would have seen that there is this X-ray machine which is kept where all bags are scanned. Now, unfortunately, there was no space in case of this hotel and to keep that X-ray machine, and they had excluded this particular requirement. Now, if that be the case, that's a risk which the management is taking of a non-compliance, and this should be properly communicated so that internal auditor also hears from the persons who are charged with governance, or those who are at the helm, that this is a risk which we can't do anything about. It's not in our control. We do not have the space. Either we allow the guests to come in, or we keep the X-ray machine for scanning the bags. The executive summary is something which is very, very important. Obviously, things are changing day in and day out. Earlier, the reports were more in Word format. Now they are in PPT format. And the report looks more like an executive summary. So 20, 25, 30 years back, what you used to look at the report, today that report is completely outdated. What was there as executive summary earlier is now in the form of a report. So the executive summary has to be much more crisper, much more to the point. It has to be clear. It has to be self-explanatory. It should be straightforward, and it should be more than a condensed version of an internal audit report. It should be something like it should tell the reader that, okay, do I need to go back to the main report to look at this observation in detail? Or it should tell very clearly what action is expected out of the reader once he has observed the areas where controls need to be tightened. So the executive summary should be something which is a very important tool. It's a mirror of the auditor, I would say, because the auditor's work gets reflected in the executive summary. What efforts he made, his own knowledge about the subject, his depth, and his understanding of the business and the business requirement. If he's able to summarize all that correctly, then it becomes a true reflection or a true mirror of his own capability. Are we good till now? We are going to the third section, which is the common pitfalls leading to a weak and ineffective internal audit report. At no, there should be no cases of factual errors or only partial information being shared. This is something which the internal auditors are blamed of, and there is a tiff between the management or the auditee and the auditor. Whether there is a justifiable reason or not, as internal auditors, you are not sitting on the chair of a judge to decide whether this should have happened, not happened. So let's take another example that there was in procurement, there was a shortage of raw material, and because of which the production suffered. Now that shortage of raw material meant there was a wrong procurement planning. The wrong procurement will say, but no, it was not my planning which was wrong. The user department did not indent it on time. User department would say, I did not know the lead time or the time the purchase department will take for getting the material from the vendor. So it ends up into one team blaming the other team, but finally the company suffering. So at no point of time while doing your internal audit, you would sit in a judgment that whose error was it? Was it the user department? Was it the procurement department? Is it a design issue? Yes, you have to find out if there is a design issue and you have to report on it, but it should be factual in nature and you should not be. So if there are objective criteria, you can definitely talk about it, but do not get into subjective areas unless you find too many such cases, and that too many such cases, then you bring it out in a different manner. So for example, you can say that the reorder levels have not been defined, or you can say the moment the user department has delayed giving indent in 5 out of 10 cases. Now, when you say user department delayed informing the requirement of material in 5 out of 10 cases, obviously everybody understands that that is the reason why the material could not come on time. Or let's say if the purchase ordering process or getting quotes from the vendor took longer and it's the procurement team's effectiveness, then it has to be pointed out based on the facts and the instances and the numbers rather than internal auditors' own perception and views. Another error which happens is not explaining the limitations. So say, if you have not checked the procurement rates, whether they are independent and whether external checks have not been done, then you may not be able to finally say whether these prices are correct prices at which it should be procured. There may be a process of 3 quotations, but we all know that there is a lot of cartel which goes on. There is a lot of, same vendor giving quotations in different names to comply with the 3 quotation requirement. So if you have not verified the rates from the market, then it's very important that you talk about that in your scope limitation. You cannot draw conclusion based on only few deviations. Again, what is critical, what is not critical, it all depends on the area which you are auditing. In certain cases, even a 1% deviation would be relevant. In some cases, even 20% deviation may not be that relevant. So again, be careful while using your judgment. Not sharing draft observation with the process owner is another mistake which we do. Issuing reports which are late. The way we talk about standard operating procedures of the company, same way there should be a timeline by which you start your work. By the time you compile and collate all your observations, and by the time you share those observations with the company, get their responses, and then final report to the management. Failing to acknowledge satisfactory performance, we spoke about positive points. Language that is too technical with too much jargons, don't try to use that, saying section so and so of act read with rules so and so. Don't get into all that. If it's an interpretation, say that this is your view based on the present understanding of the law, but don't use so and so section and rule number so and so and proviso number so and so. This is not a technical report. It is in terms of the controls and the compliances. Observations drafted without explaining the implication or the root cause. If you have not explained what is the impact of your observation, then it's only half the message which is given. It should very clearly. So for example, if let's say fixed asset register is not updated, does it have an impact on the insurance coverage? Does it have any impact while you do a physical verification and you do a reconciliation? So try to bring out, does it have any implication on the MIS? Or let's take another cases. Certain entries are not passed. There is a backlog of entries because of manpower issue. Okay, what is the implication? MIS prepared in the interim period may not be accurate. Advanced tax working, how do you do your advanced tax working if your books are not updated? So if you try to bring out the implication, then it helps the reader to understand how they should address that issue and how urgently it is required to be addressed. We go to the next section, which I told you. So this was up to slide number 20. The next 15-20 slides are actually the practical tips or examples which are there. I have used it from my own report. The flow of the report is something which is very important. You should adopt a simple and there should be clarity in communication. Generally, I prefer to go from a macro to a micro perspective, and that helps set the tone. Usually readers want to know the overall picture first, and then the overall comfort or discomfort, as I spoke earlier. And based on that macro perspective, they would want to go into details. So for example, I would say that BRS as a control tool is not effectively used. Now that's a macro perspective. Now, why am I saying BRS as a control tool is not effectively used? Because BRS is not prepared on time. There are open items in BRS. BRS is not being, there is no maker checker in BRS. Few cases BRS is not prepared. So there are 4 points relating to BRS, but I'm first saying BRS as a control tool is not being effectively utilized. So I'm giving a perspective to a person who's reading, and then I'm substantiating it by way of these 4 observations on BRS. Again, this is just an example which I've created just now, but this could apply in many, many other cases also. Critical and relevant points which the reader needs to keep in mind is what is important while you're going from macro to micro. This is just one, another tool, like you have your Chat GPT. It's a mind map, which is similar to, what Stephen Covey said, keep the end in your mind when you are beginning. So organize your thoughts. What is the point which you want to communicate? How do you process step by step? Have a visualization of it before you start drafting your observation. Visual have more appeal than words. As they say, a picture speaks more than 1,000 words. So make effective use. If, let's say, if you have visited a godown and that godown is not properly organized or the goods are not arranged, take a photograph. Again, be careful. You may need permission before taking a photograph. Or let's say you're going to a construction site. You are doing an audit of a real estate developer, and you find that the workers are neither wearing a helmet, they are neither wearing gloves. Now, this is a safety requirement that personal protective equipment should be worn, and they are not wearing it. Take a photograph. Or let's say if there is a forklift, and a forklift can move both reverse as well as forward. It's on top of it is the person who is sitting. And while it is moving backwards, it has to not only have a sign like a siren, but also a tone so that people know that the forklift is moving, and whoever is on the way, the driver may not be able to visualize the complete path, and hence it is important that the sirens should be there. But if it's not there, you take a photograph. So you have made your point that safety is not being taken full care of. Depicting redundant processes and duplications. Use a flow chart. I have used in one cases a time bomb symbol to show that, okay, this is a critical area. Or I've used an alarm clock in between a process to say that this is an alarming condition. So, the flow chart can speak a lot. It gives the flow. It tells you what it is, what is the system is, where the gaps are, and what it should be. A written content can be reduced as a picture and flow chart are speak a lot. Take this example. Okay. These were cases where the finance manager has not verified the expense entries in SAP, which is the ERP. Now, I can write many things, but look at the this diagram. And when you look at the diagram, are you not fully satisfied? Okay, there is non-compliance in 32% of the cases. Does it register much better to a reader? Answer is obviously yes. We have all seen in cricket nowadays. What does the cricketing community at the lower band, when you're watching the cricket, what is shown? It is shown what is the predicted rate, what is the run rate, how much is the balance run rate which is required. So all that information makes it interesting for the person who is looking at it, the match, and able to predict or have his own analysis. And I think that's the same human psychology which an internal auditor should look at, that how do they communicate effectively of areas which they want to bring to the attention of the management. Let's take another example. These were delays in accounting of expenses. Here, there are two things which are important. On the right-hand side, you have the department-wise delays. So first is your age-wise, then you have department-wise, and below on the band, lower band, is the comparison with the earlier 4 quarters. So this really helps whoever is reading. He doesn't have to think too much about it. He would know, okay, my 32 vouchers there is a delay, out of which 22 belong to so-and-so department. And as compared to earlier quarters, the delays have gone down because it was 98, 216, 102, and 191 in the earlier quarters. So, this gives, without speaking too much, you are able to say a lot of things. Let's look at another thing, billed versus unbilled revenue. Again, if you see on the left-hand side, GST implication to be examined. Line item-wise details and aging is not provided for unbilled revenue. So, in the same, circle, you have communicated 3 messages, that 46% is unbilled, and in that unbilled, there could be a GST implication, and the further details are not available for you to comment on it. Whatever is billed, you have then broken up into, locations, Mumbai, Gurgaon, Noida, along with the percentage. So it very clearly tells you where the main business is and what has been the focus. So this is just an example. In this case, the right-hand side does not have an observation per se. It's more of an informative. Left-hand side is more of an observation. Yeah. These are all things which I've actually used in my reports. So none of this is made up. Some numbers I may have changed, some years I would have changed. Let's take an example of a bar diagram, how it is utilized. Sorry, I can't read the title, so I'm just going to. So this is the location-wise customer overdue. And it has an age and it has each state. So it says Maharashtra has the largest debtors, then followed by Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi. Now, if business-wise, if Delhi is your largest sales, then you can say Delhi team is most effective because in spite of having the highest sales, they are in 5th position when it comes to debtors. And let's say Maharashtra had the 3rd largest sale, but it is largest in terms of outstanding. So what does it mean? If you can draw that correlation, much better. So if you could draw a line over here along with the sales number for each location, it would give that correlation between a sales and a debtors. Or you can say sales, debtors, and then old debtors. So whichever way one wants to look at it, but this speaks a lot. It tells you that your, let's say, the orange is the overdue thing, and again that is maximum in case of Maharashtra. Or Kolkata is also where the overdues are very large compared to the overall debtors, I'd say. So again, you can use some of these bar diagrams. We spoke about this. This is a photograph where the items were not kept in a haphazard manner. Boxes of material were kept open after the seal is broken. We have taken pictures where there is a leakage in the godown due to rains. We have looked at rusted material, taken photograph of rusted material and shared it with management. So many cases where you don't then need to speak anything. You can just put a photograph and the management would understand what you're trying to say. So these were some of the examples where you can, impactful statements can be made. Now, before we go ahead, I just wanted to explain the risk rating, and I think this would have got covered somewhere or the other during the 6-day session. But any observation where the impact is low and the probability of that happening or the likelihood of that occurring is low falls into the left low, and vice versa. If the likelihood is high and the impact is also expected to be high, a catastrophe, in which case it becomes a high. And between these two extremes of low and high are, low, medium, medium, low, high, low, and the other quadrants. So in totality, there are 9 quadrants. The 3 comprise of the high. In case of the middle 3 comprise the medium or moderate risk, and the last 3 the low risk. So this is how you should assign your risk. If you find an observation, you should see where it falls. Is it likelihood it will reoccur, and what would be its impact, and based on that give a risk assignment. Some people try to convert this into a scientific by saying that if I have more than 2 instances of deviation, more than 2% deviation, then I would say that the likelihood is high, or other way around, whichever way. You can define that and then give a score, and based on that score, a weighted average score, the actual result can tell you where does it fall, between the high zone, medium zone, or the low zone. In fact, there is one argument that if the impact and likelihood is low, so the on the left hand side on the first column, if it is the low both ways, then those are the areas where you should look at whether you can remove the controls, because over control is always a costly affair. And if you are having an over control where its likelihood and impact is low, then it's an unnecessary step, or it leads to inflexibility. This is another way in which you can share your overall perspective, or your overall analysis with the management. Let me just give you a brief of how to read this chart. On the left hand side are the areas. On the middle is your whether it is improvement required, strong controls. On the right hand side are all your high, medium, low, recommendation and information, and number of observations. And you see there is a up arrow, a bottom arrow, and equal to sign, which says that how was this area in the previous audit, and whether it has improved in terms of the control effectiveness, whether it has remained status quo, or whether there has been a deterioration or fall in the control effectiveness. Again, if you look at this, does it not give you a very, very clear perception or a clear picture of what is going to go forward in the report? The answer is yes. This is another way in which we have depicted at times the number of observations in different categories during the different periods. So quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four. And if you see in Q4, the overall observations from each category are more or less lower than what was there in the earlier ones, except in few cases it would be equivalent. But there is a downward graph, which means the number of observations are on a reducing path, and the comment in the end, no critical points observed during the fiscal year 22-23. So there were no high risk observations at all. Now, if you compare that with the previous year, it would give. And if you see on the left-hand side top, there is a thumbs up. Thumbs up means that this is a good position to be in because you are on the right path. You are improving from where you were, and it's something which is relevant. If it was other way around, it would have been a thumbs down to say that no, things are not happening as it should have progressed. This is a detailed version of an internal audit observation giving background, observation, table. It could have an annexure also, the root cause, implication, recommendation, management response broken up between corrective action, preventive action, person responsible, and target date. So if you can see, this one slide gives you so much information of what you found. Security deposit was not collected or there was delay. What will it lead to? It will lead to delayed payment on part of customers, inadequate escalation of follow-up process. Implication is delay in cash flow of the company and risk of credit risk. What is our recommendation? To take it to the higher up, and then what the company has done in terms of action. Yeah, are we good now? There are a few comments in the chat. I'll go through that later on if it's okay, because I can't move from my slide to the chat again and again. I'll definitely come back to that. This is another way in which at times we have presented by use of a smart art. There are 3 slides in continuity where we are saying, let's say MIS related, these were the 4 points. Now, rather than putting just text, if you add some picture, again, picture may be meaningful, may not be very meaningful. It could be an abstract thing, but it does help break the monotony of the observation. And I think it gets captured in a much better way. If you see on each bullet, there is new, or whether it's a carry forward point. So these are very crisp bullets, which are followed by details in the subsequent thing. For example, let's say sales to cash. Prepare SOP for billing and debtors. Carry out monthly reconciliation between active SIMs and SIMs given to customers. So this is for a walkie-talkie company or a mobile company, and hence you will find this SIM coming over here. So again, look at the observations. Are you communicating effectively, and does it help the management or not? Procurement to pay, expenses, hire to retire. So you have classified not based on criticality, not based on whether these are new points or carry forward points, nor based on any other criteria, but on the area specific. So for example, this is another way in which, sorry, one second. So sorry, these were grouped under different heads like MIS and sales to cash. This was area wise or expense wise. And now here, this is based on what is the reason behind that observation. Is it people, is it process, or is it technology? So as I said, if you see the last of this, effective utilization of SAP functionality, define tolerance level for accepting material greater than PO quantity. Sometimes you say a certain metric ton of steel, but the actual steel may be different. So define a materiality so that you don't have to amend the PO, capture expiry date of material during GRN process, and generate aging report of inventory. So here you have grouped it in a particular fashion. Again, you may use an Excel sheet to track the earlier observations. What was the area? Which period was it? What if there is a report number, give a report number. If there is a report date, give a report date. target date of implementation, who was responsible, and the current status. So there is not implemented, implemented, in progress, partially implemented, decided not to implement and accept the risk. It could be anything in this status. This is another one example which I had done in one of the case where I had done a comparative analysis of earlier points. So there is an inactive material code in ERP. Earlier it was, let's say, 34.28%. Now it is 35.39. So there has been an increase in those inactive cases, which is not good. So if you see on the bottom, increase in instances in current audit as compared to previous audit. Mismatch in material quantity received between gate entry register and GRN prepared in ERP. Again, there is an increase. So which means enough efforts are not made to correct the earlier errors. Whereas the third and the fourth point, there is a reduction. And in the last point, the percentage is more or less equivalent. So, these are the things which you can use to communicate whether the direction is correct or not correct, which department is taking it positively and improving, which department is not taking it positively and not taking the enough corrective action steps. So, what are the key takeaways? A well-drafted internal audit report is a key to the management for decision-making and enhancing governance. Communication through reports should be accurate, objective, clear, concise, constructive, complete, and timely. Good practice to share draft report with management for discussion and inputs prior to finalization. For lengthy assignments, periodic status update, interim draft reports should be used wherever required. Also, here you remember, if there is something which you have observed, which is very, very important and critical and requires immediate action, you can also issue a flash report. Reports should be shared only with the intended recipients, and appropriate limitation for circulation should be added. So you should say the client should not circulate it further. In the end, it's like a newspaper. You will, based on the heading, you will decide whether you want to read more or not read that article more. Depending on the timing of the newspaper, you will decide whether you want to read or it's already come on the WhatsApp and hence no longer relevant. So timeliness is important, correct titling is important, correct context is important, and the truthness in reporting is something which is very, very important. Yeah, with this, I end my presentation, but I'm open to any and every question which you have. So I see comments which are coming. In case of delay in accounting of expenses, sometimes the invoices are received on a very later date from the vendor itself. Should it be considered as a no? In which case, what you should do is there should be an inward stamp. And why is the vendor delaying? Because what happens is if you've already paid the money and if the invoice is not received, you may not be able to take the correct GST credit and all those things. Now, though everything is automized, and according to me, vendor delaying invoices now is less of an issue in the GST era as compared to in the past. So I would personally feel that if there is a delay from the vendor in submission of the invoices, yes, you should give the accounts team the due benefit or the procurement team the due benefit. But at the same time, try to find out why are the vendors delaying. Linking the purchase to requisition and stock availability also gives idea about splitting PO for reasons not clear. That would be a starting point to go deep as per my experience. Yes, I think, Madhuri, what you have pointed out is relevant. It's important to find out, and this is something which I've not covered over here, is the fraud mindset or, the fraud triangle, that whoever does it with an intention, they generally know the system well, they know the loopholes, they try to justify themselves by saying that what they are doing is not wrong, and that's how the fraud mindset works. Yes, you will get the PPT, Vanda madam. That's the question which you have asked. at least I will share it to WRC and then they can decide what to do about it. So there's no restriction in circulation from my side. Good to define threshold in risk rating. Otherwise, we end up, yes, you can, depending on the client, you can decide. Sometimes you may have to use a little judgment while assigning a risk rating, but yes, you can make it more scientific. Is there any reporting sample for manpower utilization? Technical service company, provider company of PSU? I'm not aware about it and I'm not very clear about the question, but nonetheless, nothing which comes to my mind immediately. Yeah, that's it. Chintan bhai, over to you. I think I have tried to cover whatever I had in my library.
No, thank you, Milan. I think it
One
has been
question in
really
the
a
Q&A
pride
session
pleasure.
also.
And Pinky madam, please, Pinky madam, yeah.
Yes, yeah, Pinky madam, sorry.
Yeah, one question is in Q&A session also.
Okay.
Okay. Can you read out, madam? Okay, I'll read it.
Yeah.
In the audit report, do you need to disclose that the information is gathered, for example, use of SQL, any third-party application, reporting tool, help from? Yes, you should. In fact, you may have to take permission from the your client or the auditee before you do that. So again, it depends on whether it is an in-house internal audit or whether it is an external agency. And if you are using the data, you are pulling it on your system, I think a prior approval is generally preferable. And you can also, if you're sharing it with somebody to do some analysis, you cannot do it unless you have taken the prior approval, because otherwise this could be a matter for dispute between the auditor and the auditee.
I think it's great, Milan bhai. Already we have received feedback from the participants in the chat box.
Okay.
But yes, we have the requirement to have formal word of thanks. So I request my council colleague Pinky Kedia to address and also provide word of thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Chintan bhai. It is indeed my pleasure to hear Milan sir. He was so clear in his delivery, and all the things has been cleared. And there is no any what he was saying that key report में most technical word use नहीं करने हैं. He was not using more technical word in his presentation. So it was quite interesting, and any layman can also understand how to prepare the report. But otherwise, the drafting of report is an art. What you are saying, it's an art. People who is reading the report, he should clear in thought कि report में क्या बोलना चाह रहा है. हम सीए के साथ यही प्रॉब्लम होती है मिलन सर, कि हम काम बहुत अच्छा कर लेते हैं, बहुत अंदर तक घुस घुस के उसका पूरा माइनिंग कर देते हैं, बट एट द टाइम ऑफ रिपोर्टिंग वो हम छोड़ देते हैं कि हमें क्या रिपोर्ट करना है, हाउ वी हैड कम टू दिस रिपोर्टिंग. एंड जैसे आपने कहा कि कंक्लूजन नहीं निकाल के देते हम ये लिख देते हैं कि हाँ ये मिला. अब इसकी वजह से कहाँ इम्पैक्ट आ रहा है, दैट इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट. कि हमें पता, यदि रीडर को पता चले कि इसकी वजह से ये इम्प्लीकेशन आ रहा है, देन योर रिपोर्ट विल बी यूजफुल. अभी मैंने सबको यही बोलती हूँ कि हम जो बोलते हैं कि सीए की इंपॉर्टेंस कम हो रही है, क्यों कम हो रही है? क्योंकि हम कंप्लायंस एंगल से खाली देख रहे हैं. हमारी वजह से जो भी हमारा क्लाइंट है उसको क्या बेनिफिट क्या हो रहा है. यदि हम उसको कुछ गाइडेंस दे सकेंगे, उसको कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन दे सकेंगे, उसके यदि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में कुछ प्रॉब्लम चल रही है या कुछ वो हो रहा है, यदि हम उसको वो चीज वो बता सकेंगे, देन ही वुड नो आवर इम्पोर्टेंस.
यस.
अदरवाइज जो सिर्फ कंप्लायंस यदि हम कर रहे हैं तो कब तक हम उस चीज को कैरी कर सकेंगे.
पिंकी जी एक कहावत है इंटर्न ऑडिट में कि अगर 10वीं कक्षा का लड़का भी अगर वो रिपोर्ट समझ सके,
यस,
if your report is so lucid and so self-explanatory that even a 10th standard student is able to understand what you are saying, then it's a very successful exercise, because you have been able to explain to a person who is otherwise not expected to know too many things.
Yeah, and after Corona, no one have patience to read a full 10-page reports. They need only bullet points. कि क्या है, within two line में आप बता दो.
Yes.
So it's very nice to hear from you, Said sir, and the way you have explained the things, it was great, and I know you could get the feedback from our participant also that it was nice session, and they want your recording also. So we will share after the they can download from our website also in after completion of this course. We are uploading your presentation and video both on WRC website, so they can download from there. And thank you, Milan sir. And I would request you if you can come from for students program also, because I am this year Vikasa chairperson. So they are asking to place one program on internal audit. So it would be my pleasure to if you will come and guide the student also, because what I feel that our report is based on the work done by them. So these technical point, these three small point documentation part, they should know very clearly that otherwise our work will be in hands. So
Sure.
so
Madam,
I will
there are
be
two
in touch with
questions.
you.
I'll just quickly take them. I'll not take more than 2 minutes. Is it possible to convert Excel tracking sheet directly into the first draft report of PPT? I think you can paste it, but a direct conversion may not be possible. I'm not a technical person, so I may not have the right answer. But I have seen my team members pasting the Excel worksheet as a table in the PowerPoint presentation. The second question is, report tend to follow the same format across clients. What is the right balance for innovating report presentation versus standardization? I think each organization has a different philosophy. Again, what is the maturity level of the organization which you're auditing? Based on that, you may decide to modify your report. Certain parts can remain standard and certain innovation is obviously useful. And with your team members, new team members, fresh blood, young chartered accountants, you will obviously have a lot of new ideas which will come from them. As a senior or as otherwise, you should be able to decide what is good for your client. Yeah. Thank you, Pinky madam. Sorry to take away your.
No. It's a very great thing, sir, that you are मतलब जाते जाते तक भी जितने क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं, you are answering all the question, you are solving all the question. It was great. It is great, sir. So thank you, Milan sir, and we will call you again and again. If we want to listen from you, we want your guidance in this internal audit chapter. So thank you, and thanks for Chintan कि सर को बुलाया आपने एंड मुझे आज का करने दिया कोऑर्डिनेशन. So thank you, Chintan.
Pinky madam, you are always available, and you are always being requested to spare your time. So Milan, we not taking much time further. We have panel discussion. Panelists have already joined. Thank you once again, and we'll be in touch. And now taking time further, we can start with the next session, so at least others can join.
Yes. So for second session, I want to introduce Kaival Shah, CS Kaival Shah, who is here also. He is a chartered accountant from Ahmedabad, and his academic qualification, he's done a certification course of on concurrent audit and forensic audits also. He's certified information system auditor, and he's founder and CEO of his chartered accountant firm Kaival Shah and Company. And he is also co-founder and partner of J&K and Company Chartered Accountant firm. He is a regular writer and contributor to the blogs of Ahmedabad branch of WRC of ICAI. He is a regular speaker on this subject, and he is very energetic and young CA to do many things. So with this brief introduction, I want to invite Kaival Shah for this panel. Thank you, Kaival, so for accepting our invite.
Yeah, so I think before Kaival take charge, let me just briefly provide, because this is all I know personally, and they have been kind enough to accept my request to be a panelist on the first call itself. So the commitment for each one of them to contribute to ICI is commendable. So salute to each one of you for sparing your alone time. I can see Pramod, Murli, they both have been like taking time out from the busy schedule and part of some cabin to really respond to this question. So thank you so much for coming here. and I'm sure that your experience, I think what they're looking for as participant is that everybody is looking to listen from you the practical exposures, and the whole series has been defined in such a fashion that we have technical session, and then thereby you being industry experts come into picture and then share practical inputs. That's what we are looking for. So once again, thanks to each one of you, and now I hand over charge to Kaival, who is again very young, dynamic, and is a future of the ICA profession. So hand over charge to Kaival.
Thanks
Thank
a lot,
you so much,
Chintan,
sir.
for inviting us. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be there.
Yes, Chintan, it's a pleasure and honor to be here on this panel discussion. Thank you, Chintan.
Who more better than internal audit than Chintan Patel? Yeah, hi, Kaival.
Yes,
Nice,
hi.
nice to hear about you.
Yeah,
Hi,
good
Pramod.
evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Pinky Man, Chintan sir, and all the expert panelists present over here. And it has always been my pleasure to be a part of this panel discussion because it's always a great experience to learn from the industry leaders. So it's always a learning experience. So thank you so much for inviting me, sir. So to begin with the session, I would first like to introduce all the three of our expert panelists that is present over here today. So the first expert panelist over here is CA Arvind Modi.
Yeah,
Sir,
Kaival, Arvind is rejoining. You can just introduce later on. He will be rejoining.
Sure. So moving on to our next second expert panelist, CA Pramod Ghorpade, sir. So sir is a professional with over 25 years of post-qualification experience. Sir has been working with Indoco Remedies Limited as Executive Vice President and Group CFO responsible for finance, IT, legal and secretarial, interdistribution, logistics and investor relationship things. Sir has worked with Indian listed companies such as Jindal, Pidilite, Lupin and MNCs such as Watson Pharma and Teva Pharmaceuticals. Pramod sir is having experience in various roles in strategic planning, merger and acquisition, accounts, tax, treasury, audit, distribution and various transformation projects in India and outside India. With this, I would like to welcome CA Pramod Ghorpade sir for taking the time and being present over here.
Thank you, CA Kaival. Thank you, CA Pinky, and thank you, Chintan. Thank you for this.
I would also like to introduce our third expert panelist, Muralikrishna Cheruvu, sir. So, sir is a CA, CMA, and a company secretary, a triple qualified professional with 20 years of experience in insurance sector and holds a key managerial position with Kotak Mahindra Life Insurance Company Limited. So he has been also recognized as a part of India's top 20 most influential audit leaders at the Audit World Summit and Awards 2022 by Transformance. Sir has received external awards as Best Compliance Leader and Risk Professional of the Year. He has also received the Managing Director's Award for Best Compliance Team Leader. Currently, Sir is an Executive Vice President and Company Secretary and also heads the Finance, Accounts, Tax, Secretarial, Treasury, Business Planning and MIS functions. And also to mention, a leader who always says to his team in the true spirit of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and uplifts everyone in his teams who makes them believe that they can achieve everything they want. A huge Telugu fan, big foodie and an avid traveler who even after a tiring work will go out, talk to people and explore cities. And we must say, sir is also present over here after this heavy after the heavy hectic work day. So with this, I would like to welcome CA Muralikrishnan sir to the session.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Thank you, Pinky madam. Thank you, Chintan bhai.
Can we also introduce CA Arvind Modi sir?
Yes, please. Yes.
So the third expert panelist for today's session is CA Arvind Modi sir. Sir is a professional and practicing for more than 21 years. He's a senior partner at TR Chadda and Company, who is heading Ahmedabad branch of firm. Sir is practicing exclusively in internal audit and other GRC areas. He possesses exposure in domestic and international activities of various industries. Thank you so much, sir, for your presence over here.
Thank you, Kaival, and thank you, Chintan, and thank you all panelists for joining.
So to begin with the session, could I just request each and every panelist to give a brief comments on the topic for the today's session and your brief insights to the session. Can we start with Arvind Modi, sir?
Okay, Kaival, so I'll take it over here.
Thank you.
So yeah, good evening all. So the topic is on reporting. So as we all know that we all are auditors, we all are chartered accountant, we verify all data, the analysis, we communicate to the clients. But what it is seen is generally is that whatever you present, whatever you report is seen as a phase of what you have done. So it's not necessary you would have done many good things in during your audit process and everything, but unless and until you report that, and which is easy to grasp from the other side, then there is a no till then there is a no use of that audit findings or audit observations. So reporting is a very key element, and nowadays the reporting are done at a various levels. It's not only to only to management or something. So internal audit report like statutory audit reports are also now a keystone in the compliances and GRCs and internal controls. So that's it from my side to set the tone.
Yeah, Pramod here. Good evening, everyone. I believe the topic and the oral summary for this topic was given by Milan Bhai in last slide when he showed takeaways in his presentation last session. So that summarizes a lot of things about how to communicate audit observations effectively. Nevertheless, we shall try to share our experience, actual experience working with industry on this topic. So how to communicate audit observation effectively? I think very important topic which you all have picked up for a discussion. It's extremely important, considering our experience in industry, we find it very useful. Like, we should educate our student, our peers, our CA fraternity friends about this particular topic. So audit process is extremely important, and equally the communicating a report or sharing a report or audit observation effectively is equally important. So I believe effective of communication of observations start with a standard template. Whenever audit observations are shared, that need to be given in a standard template. We should start with the effective or executive summary. Then the root causes, the impact analysis, whether it is high, medium, low, and audit recommendations, management responses. All this is a part of, I would say, a good audit observations and communicating very well to the auditee. So with this, I'll we'll start the discussion, and maybe I'll request my co-panelist, Mr. Muralikrishna, for his opening comments, please.
Hi, it's a wonderful topic to be associated with, and this topic never dies, even in spite system. It's always the question of how the internal audit report is and how is it presented, especially to the audit committee, to the management, how loose, simple it is. And I just came in 15 minutes before, and I was listening to the earlier panelist who absolutely aptly put this topic in a very proper and simple manner. So few points to keep in mind while the drafting of the audit reports is very correctly as stated by the other panelists. They ensure that the observations header is self-explanatory, and you should utilize clear and straightforward language. You should minimize or you should not use the technical jargon words unless it's very essential. Include information about the risks as well as what are the corrective and preventive actions. Clearly define responsibility and timelines. This is most important when you're drafting these the audit reports. And a very well drafted audit report, it holds significant value even within the audit committee, and it helps them to envisage or give the responsibilities to the respective persons to closure of these audit points. And the most important is also, which we will be covering in our topics, is the executive summary. And why that is important, I'll come up to that point when these questions are raised. Thank you very much for inviting.
Thank you. Thank you so much, each and everyone, for setting the tone, amazing tone for today's session. And we thus understand that communication has now become very brief. So each and every management needs a very visual, and they could understand the audit report in a lesser amount of time. And thus the internal auditors must report in a manner that really reflects the reality of the work that he has done. So to begin with the today's session, I would like to start with the understanding of the importance of internal audit report. So to start with my first question to Arvind Modi sir. Sir, we understand that the stakeholders now clearly reports that business issues and risk that could hamper or undermine their ability to achieve business goal. They need very objective, truthful, straightforward reporting that takes a point of view. So we need to understand that what, according to you, are the most important or the important areas that must be covered in the internal audit report, or what would be the ideal structure and the content of internal audit observations?
Okay, so it is generally seen that internal audit is done to add value to the organization's strategic goals and the objectives. So how that can be achieved is by the way of communication which you have done, so which is an internal audit report. Now, as we have seen in earlier session also, so what I typically as on date, if we talk about the practically how the internal audit structure or reportings are. So generally, it starts with it starts with the audit universe. So you have to present an audit universe, giving all areas which are to be audited, because nowadays there are large organizations where the internal audit cannot be done in a one go. It has to be staggered in the either it in the monthly or quarterly or whatever the basis would be life cycle of audit cycle. So whole that so whenever you present your report, you give that audit universe has to be present. What was the audit universe approved by the board of directors or audit committee, as the case may be, and then where do you stand as on date whenever you are reporting? So which audit areas has been completed or not completed? That should be the first starting. I will say starting the audit report. Then there has to be the rating of the processes. So if you have picked up any 3 or 4 areas of process areas, so particularly that area where how it was rated. So rating can be into 3: satisfactory, needs improvement, or uncontrollable. That all depends on the controls which you have checked, that how many controls have failed. There could be a so it depends on number of observation, criticality of observation. It all depends on that. But you have to rate an audit area. So this process area, whether what according to auditor you feel that after going through all that observations, all the processes, control, what they feel this area is all about. That is second thing it should be covered in report. Third thing we generally cover is PCI, which is known as a process control index, which gives its sub processes under one the audit area. Like if it is a procurement to pay, then there could be various 8-10 parameters which you would have tested, you would have seen as a sub processes. So how that each sub processes that are to be rated, again given a rating of and that rating has been given into two bifurcation. One, whether that control had the operational failure, or there was a design failure. So if that any sub process was there, whether there was a design gap, or there was only an operational gap. So that both thing has to be highlighted in that PCI, which is known as process control index. Then third topic comes on the data statistics. So internal audit report should also include a data statistics also, because it will set the tone of any reader, that what whole the universe of that, either it is key figures are there, or any what are the major customers, or any major inventory, whatever it would be there. The data statistics for particular area has to be reported also, apart from your other observations and everything. As we discussed, these three things are basically preamble to the audit report, which are generally given, and then there comes with an executive summary, where in the one liner, two liner, you just are expressing your whole observation into a crisp. So anyone has to read without going through a whole audit the points. So they can grasp the main finding on that from the executive summary. Apart from that executive summary, then next comes an audit observations, which in detailed audit observations are given into that. Again, that audit observations has to be based on the criticality of risk. So you have to first high risk areas, you should report that earlier so that reader comes with the high risk area more other. It should not be that sequential audit observation should be framed in such a way that reader comes from high, medium, low to judge that which audit observations are first high risk area has been reported or not. So then that way it has to be given. Then there has to be that category of risk has to be highlighted in that observation. So each observation should have a category of risk, which could be either reputational, financial, operational, regulatory, any type of risk that also has to be covered. And in the end, there has to be a action taken report also covering in the end of the report where the whatever the previous audit observations were there in internal audit. So that what is the status of that is complied or not complied. Again, there has to be statistics of number of observations earlier it was reported, which has been complied, how many it is still be in process, or the deadline has not yet crossed, the period has not come where the last action taken deadline was given. So all these are this is the internal audit report structure which we generally follow in nowadays. So this is our report structure. And if you talk about observations, then again observation has to give a background where the background has to be in reference of SOP, some SOP para reference. So whatever issue we are reporting, so which SOP para is referring to, we are referring to that there's the issue. There could be what practice the company or the user department is following, that has to be inbuilt into that background. And some data has to be, if it is to be given for the population or something related to that issue, that has to be given in the background of the observation. Then the issue has to be given in detail. Nowadays, it is seen that issues are less to be on a paragraph mode, so less of wordings has to be there, more of visuals in terms of graphs or charts or table has to be presented, which helps then the reader to understand the complex informations or observations easily. So that helps the reader to understand that observation. Implication, again, there has to be a separate para in that observation, which gives an implication. Either it could be excess payout, cost implication, revenue loss, or any other regulatory violation. That all has to be mentioned separately, what exactly this issue is relating to, what it is going to impact to them. Again, if there is a financial saving or there's a financial figure, that can be separately also disclosed along with the implication. How was that? Risk rating, again, that it is generally it is color coded, either it is red or orange or green. Generally, it is being given. So this issue is your high risk issue, the medium risk or low risk. So generally, color coding is being used for that. Again, there is no, as earlier it was discussed, there is no such parameters given. It has to be case to case. The risk rating of that issue has to be decided based on percentage of error out of total population, what is the percentages of major process lapses are there, or it's only exceptional errors you have got in that particular issue. Or it could be financial value either linked with top line or PAT, whatever the weight, depending on issue, you have to decide that this issue, what the financial implication has to be there. So this is generally used for the risk rating. And then the audit observation has to cover your cause also, which will either it is related to people, process, or technology. So what was the cause pertaining to this issue? So that has to be clearly highlighted. So what was the reason for this issue has happened? Recommendation, again, recommendation is not to be given in generic. It has to be specific, where the preventive action has to be generated to kill this issue, and not only to just it should be taken care or something. So that type of recommendation should not be there. And last, in the end of the observation, there is a kappa, where there is a corrective and preventive action. It is generally known as the word as a kappa. So where for this issue, what corrective action has been taken by the management, and what are the preventive actions which will ensure that non-occurrence of this issue in future. So this is the practicality where in general it is currently the internal audit report and internal audit observations are structured in currently.
Thank you so much, sir. I would must mention that you had explained each and every point along with the examples of all the content that is practically to be implemented in the internal audit report. And I'm sure that the examples which you had provided, like for the risk, you have to mention in this way, for the recommendations, for all those stuff. I am sure that that would help all the participants present over here in understanding the content as well as sequence, and along with the examples that has to be that can be practically implemented in the internal audit report. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, moving on to our next question. So I would like to ask Pramod, sir. Sir, you are the Executive Vice President and CFO of a pharma sector, which is usually understood as a very complex industry, and your business facilities are spread across the country. So I would like to understand that what role typically does an internal auditor play in this sector, and also how does the audit committee of the company engages in discussion with the internal auditor for the key findings and follow up thereon.
Yeah, thank you, Kaival, for this question. Yes, pharma sector is very complex indeed. It is one of the most regulated industry, I would say, as such. And pharma, as you know, pharma is known as the pharmacy of the world. India is known as a pharmacy of the world, and if you see Indian companies doing extremely well in this particular sector. As you know, this sector is one of the along with IT, it's one of the rising sector for last 20 odd years. One of the highest employment creator in India. And if you see the overall manufacturing part in the pharma as regards to ASFDA approved plants or supplies to world and all that, it is absolutely a very promising sector as such. So you are rightly said that pharma is one of the complex business, and having facilities, R&D center, distribution in India, outside India, and particularly if I talk about my company, then it's a very complex business as such. And in such a complex business, internal auditor's role is extremely important. When you have more complexities, you require to have robust systems, strong processes, internal controls, whether it is manual or system and all that. While having such controls, definitely it makes sense to have a proper internal audit, internal control process also, and equally equipped also. And that is why auditors' role, internal auditors' role, is extremely important in pharma and of course in other industry as well. So internal audit team can play either external or internal, can play a very important role in designing processes, ensuring controls at appropriate levels, both at system controls as well as manual controls if required. In addition to that, if you have widespread locations, businesses across various states and countries, then I think you require a proper system, a proper let us say ERP system or various systems to take care of such a widespread business, and those systems need to be integrated. Now in integrated system, again auditors plays a very crucial role. You have a lot of challenges in such systems, and auditors need to be equipped to understand such kind of systems to support the business. In such environment, IT controls plays a very crucial important role, I would say. And as business grows, it becomes more complex, and auditor need to be on the toes in regards to the IT controls. Understanding of the business of such a complex nature is extremely important. Operations need to be understood very well before auditor starts their work and add value to the organization. As you know, there is a huge disruptions which are going on in various sectors, including pharma. If you talk about pharma, there are a lot of changes which are happening because of regulator, because of external factors worldwide, FDAs and audits, those things. Pharma is in news with FDA audits and all that. So that affects your business substantially. And as you know, the pace of disruption is also phenomenal. As we talk, a lot of changes are happening. So it's very important that auditor understand this environment, internal environment, the complexities of this particular sector, the regulatory aspects of it, the external environment, the worldwide market. Those are extremely important for the auditor to come out with a effective audit process. The external environment, or recently if you see talking about FDAs and the impact of FDA audits, the type of the observation, type of reports they issue, the impact of the same on product and process and launches. Unless and until you understand this, probably you may not be able to just give a justice and do a justice to the audit process as such. In addition to this, and as we know, the role of internal audit, they provide a very independent and objective evaluation of processes, controls, and systems, and that is their duty, I would say. So it's very important to understand, the audit firms need to, I would say, change their approach towards audit, primarily considering all the conditions which I mentioned above. They should have industry-specific knowledge, domain expertise, and they should have resource and talent pool, I would say, to do a meaningful audit in such environment. Unless and until they have right resources, I would say they will not be able to do justice to the job given to them. A knowledge level, both technical as well as subject knowledge is the foremost, I would say. The external factors which I mentioned about, again, the pricing model and all those things, are quality systems. That is again a very important aspect of audit in a pharma specific, and that is why you require proper resources to do such kind of audit. And that is why internal auditor's role is extremely important in such kind of complex environment, complex business. Your second question about or second part of your question is audit committee's engagement with I think you mentioned about how does audit committee engage in discussing with the internal audit for any significant findings and follow. As we all know, audit committees acts independently and plays extremely important role in protecting investors' interest, I would say. It's a part of proper governance, and all the companies, whether it is listed or unlisted, do give a lot of importance to this part, because it creates a lot of confidence, in external words, as such, and of course with regulators also. So particularly the discussion with the audit committees. So audit committee chairman, as as the requirement, they definitely give a lot of importance to this process. As such, in industry there is a process of a discussion with internal audits, taking their opinions about the company's practices, the way companies managed. So definitely audit committee takes cognizance of all these remarks, which are very critical in their assessment about the company, discussion within the board. And of course that keeps a professional like us, the executive committee, the decision makers in the organization on their toes in terms of implementing right practices and controls in the organization. So I think there is very healthy discussions between auditors, internal audit particularly, with the audit committees in the boardroom.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So we understand that the understanding of the business is a preliminary requirement for any of the complex sector. And after the understanding of the requirements, you would be easily able to carry on your functions as per the requirements.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So moving on to our further discussion, I would like to ask Muralikrishnan sir. Sir, we understand that it is essential that irrespective of the nature of the internal audit work that has been carried out, the internal audit report must be so well drafted that the reader of the internal audit report is easily able to understand and scan all the corrective actions that has to be taken. So he would be able to do all his things in a very proper manner. So my question would be, can you share a real life example of how the audit committee has taken the corrective action on the recommendations of the internal audit report?
Yeah, thanks, Kaival, for the question. Wonderfully started by Arvind as well as Pramod. Almost have answered everything. Okay. See, the basic objective of to issue the internal audit reports that it should command the attention of the various process owners, like the stakeholders who are responsible for the various operational activities, and we have to persuade them to take corrective actions. And that's the reason I stated in the starting itself also, accountability for implementation should be specified. Who's accountable for that? And it is extremely important that internal audit reports should be supported by quality audit field work. And very rightly put by Mr. Pramod is that in order to give all the above things which I have stated, the internal auditor or the external internal auditor needs to have a thorough understanding of the processes that he or she is auditing. Else, whatever suggestions he or she is giving will not hold good. Internal auditor's report should contain a clear written expression of significant observations, the suggestions, recommendations on the policies, the risks, the controls, and any transaction processing taken as a whole, and also with the management responses. The internal audit report should be drafted taking into account requirements of the various types of readers of that internal audit report, which would include your board of directors, the audit committee, your senior management people, the KMPs, key managerial persons, business management and process owners, and other maybe external or the external auditors or other external stakeholders, like say your regulators. So internal audit report should be easy, compact, and should be understandable, compelling, and it should also be persuasive. It is rightly said that the internal audit report should be so well drafted that the readers are easily able to understand the audit finding and take a decision about what are the corrective steps to be taken. It is important that the report should be drafted in such a manner that any independent person reading it should understand the entire observation, say, in a flash. All the actions in the observations are tracked, validated, and implemented. So any additional actions of audit committee is documented ideally in the minutes, and actions is implemented. So normally the audit committee would want the management to take corrective steps on the internal audit reports to ensure that the points are not repeated again. And of course, they want the follow-up mechanisms also internally built in, that these points do not get repeated elsewhere again, by either in the internal audit reports or during the regulatory audits that take place. Now, one such live example which I can remember is we had, because I'm in the business of insurance, life insurance at Kotak Life. So we had a commission payment issues that I still remember, where there were renewal commission that was being paid to, say, terminated agents who had not completed 5 years. Normally, you can pay renewal commission to people who have been terminated on account of, say, fraud or any other aspects. You should not pay commission. But because there were two different systems working on it, there was one operations and one from the distribution side, that I remember that these two systems were not cooperating with each other, and there was an issue wherein a renewal commission was being paid to people who have not completed 5 years. That issue was properly addressed in the audit committee, and it was regularly tracked in all the monthly meetings for closure. That is one point which I would remember. The second one, which would see, because we are, again, as I say, we are in the insurance business, so there are life insurance products. There are many features of those products which get in. So suddenly what happens when a product gets in, after some time, some additional feature is added. So what we saw is that ideally when an additional feature is added, there is in particular plan wherein it has to go back, and from initial stage, the calculations have to be done. But it was not taking care because, again, of the systemic issues, and then it started miscalculating or calculating wrong for new policies. It was not taking into consideration the old ones. So this was one more actionable point. See, these are not simple points, or when I say it appears to be simple, but these are so complicated that the intervention of the audit committee was necessary, because it ultimately dealt with the external, also the policy holders, because ultimately we are in the business of paying claims and we are dealing with external policy holders. One more example which I would say is that there was an employee referral audits where a candidate is referred and we make payments to the person who's referring it, say 15,000 or something. But then we found a issue in those referral schemes also. And we found that the referral was being paid to the immediate supervisor. Now, his job is ideally, his job is ideally to recommend people who can report into him. So I cannot pay referral to those guys. And we also found in certain cases that the person referred became the reporting manager. Okay, so that means the junior was recommending his seniors. So these are all the flaws in the processes that were identified and controls put in. Of course, with the help of, I would not say with the help of the audit committee, but these are basic things which need to be there. But audit committee just ensures that these are done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So we again understand that the more complex would be the industry, like pharma, insurance is also one of the complex industry, the more would be the relevance and the role of the internal auditor that would be involved. And
Sorry, the smaller points actually are most important points, which we feel are, say, lower or medium risk points. They ultimately, if you don't cover them, they move on towards the high risk.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for sharing your recent and like the most live examples for all the participants present over here. And just to understand that the reporting also becomes equally important, because once you identify all these irregularities, it becomes important to how well you report to the audit committees to get it corrected. So moving on to a further discussion, I would like to understand from Arvind, sir. So nowadays, technology plays a highly structured and standardized method of reporting internal audit results, as the internal auditor can have quick and easy access to all the internal audit data. So I would like to understand from you, sir, that how important is the benefit we can take from the use of technology in preparation and presentation of our internal audit report.
So again, if we take it further, then the technology, like at both levels, whether it is at the audit level or it is at auditor level or at all levels, the technology are increasing. Like in companies level, so the installation of SAP, Oracle, ERP, tele ERP, various other customized ERP, that all are happening. And on the front of auditors, where they are using either they are using Tableau, they are using Power BI, they are using Idea software. There are many other tools which has come in market where this all the technologies are being used at both fronts. Now, what will happen is the benefits happening two, three fronts. One is on the reliability of the data. So whatever data we are gathering now for the audit, that has been relied on. Earlier, when there were many workings which used to be done on an Excel and then provided to auditors, so there could be a manual work, manual interventions were there. So now used of because of the technology, this data are self-sufficient and reliable. So an auditor can directly download the data from the ERP softwares and then they can work on that data. So that is the one basis, because earlier, in past, we used to do some observation, used to do some working observation, then we discuss. Then it was generally, many times it was discussed that, this data might be old or this data might be not correct. There would be some, we had some other data also, we have wrongly given data to you. So that all things are now eliminated because of having this technology coming into front. Second thing is the analysis which are happening now, which are because all organizations has gone large. So data volume has gone large. So now the analysis are getting done on an entire population because of this technology rather than done on a sampling basis. So again, if you find some exception that you find some errors, then again, you can go back to whole system, take out the whole such type of errors done in how many transactions it has happened or something. That all also can be now the audit trail can be get, and then the whole population can be get involved for that whole, what is the total impact of that issue to an organization. That also can be easily achievable because of the technology. Third things are the time and effort, whether the auditors earlier used to give their time in data collection, data mining, and the preparation of data for audit and discussion. So that all are eliminated because we can get many exceptional reports now because of the audit tools which the auditors are using or the companies have installed various the ERPs. So there are the tables which comes back according, like in SAP, there are many tables designed, which gives you directly the data which is required for the analysis, and then auditor can get the exceptions out of that. And that only analysis and that concentrated effort has to be given to that exceptions, rather than that going back through and identifying the exceptions and doing. So the effort has become more concentrated, I will say, towards the audit issues and something. Then the presentation, so the technology, the various presentation tools, presentation ways which are coming. So how do you present your complex data, complex information which you want to pass on? This has become very easy because of the technologies coming in. You are better now in the presenting, better now in the explaining that details, complex data and all things. So all these things are ultimately adding value to improve your reporting and communication of an audit issues to the auditees, and which is helping them in implementing the actions to be implemented. So I think so technology is playing a lot many role at both the fronts, auditor and auditee levels.
Kaival,
You're
you're
muted.
mute.
You're muted.
Yes, sir. So I was just saying that we understand that more the amount of tech we used in preparation and presentation of our report, the more would be the benefits to the reader in understanding the report in the easier and a shorter amount of time.
Correct.
So moving further, like let's understand about the impact and the attention, like how we really make the impact and attention of our internal audit report to the top management. So my question would be to Pramod sir, because you are at the top helm of affairs of your company. So we understand that the large conglomerates always want that their internal auditors are very credible and they work collaboratively and they think tall and act like a business leader. So you wanted to understand that how does an internal auditor really make an impact through his internal audit report and get the attention of the top management?
Yeah, very good question. So I believe having the first step for an impactful audit process and audit report starts with the scoping. So there should be a very, very clear-cut understanding about the audit scope. That is very important. Otherwise, you go haywire and work a lot, but comes out with hardly any kind of valuable suggestion or observation. So first step is to have a very clear-cut understanding about the audit scope with the client. Define the same in a documented process. Expectations about audit outcomes should be very clear, and you should plan your resources, the field work, and accordingly other areas well in advance. You should also very specifically share the timelines and take the time from the respective auditors, auditees, I would say. The top management or a board of directors, their expectation about the audit nowadays is, how do you add value? And a lot of, panelists, co-panelists and speakers spoke about this, about the value addition from the audit, firm or auditors, rather than just, a kind of a transactional or a procedural kind of audit. So that term called value addition is absolutely a buzzing word, and that is the expectation from internal audit team or external internal auditor as such. So what exactly top management expects, and when you say a value addition towards business means, very specifically, identifying the points where, company can bring in operational efficiencies, the cost saving measures or automation, control lapses, those things. Just to give you an example, maybe I can, share, a kind of example from my industry as such, or pharma industry as such. So let's say if there is a scope of inventory in a overall internal audit process, how company manage inventory, what are aging buckets, 180 days plus, 365 days plus, and all that, and the auditor comes out with observation saying that inventory more than 365 days in XYZ $1 million or rupees or crores, or maybe 180 days plus is so and so. I need to do a write off and all those things. Those kind of suggestion comes, those kind of observation comes with the auditor. Without going in more in detail, understanding business. The first point which Mr. Murli also mentioned about understanding about the business, understanding about the internal and external factors extremely important. And I would like to give you a classic example of COVID period. During the second wave or so, we started with vaccination and all. So during vaccination, there was huge demand for the bottles, caps, rubber caps. Huge demand. And the industry or the sector or the company which was in sterile business, injectables, they had a tough time in getting bottles and related packing material, I would say. Now during those days, company decided and went after all the manufacturers across globe to take a to ensure that you get a proper stock, you keep a stock of bottles, caps for your future requirement for 2 years or 3 years. Now let us say if the auditor comes and audits only based on the numbers, only based on their understanding about the old stock and all that, then and if they come out with the observation, then probably that audit observation may not be impactful for the business, may not be impactful in the for the board or for the audit committee as well, because in fact by protecting your bottles, caps and packing material, you are ensuring that business continuity, you are ensuring that your future business is not impacted as such substantially because of availability of such kind of bottles and caps. So now just see the two part of this particular example where auditors from probably from their end come out with audit observation, but that may not be impactful for the company. So whenever such kind of discussion happens in a board and all that, then the impact of oral audit goes down. So one is about understanding about the business. Second is coming out with a very very specific pointers where a company can get a benefit out of such kind of audit observation, cost saving measures, operational efficiencies, and all. Another thing is about the benchmarking, peer review. There definitely auditors with their wide expertise, wide knowledge across industry, across processes, definitely can add a lot of value without stating company names where they do a further audit. For example, let us say consumables and the spare parts in any industry is extremely important. You spend a lot of money, particularly consumables in a pharma industry. And in case if auditor they have good knowledge about the peers or various companies, without stating their name, they can do a cross reference, they can do a lot of benchmarking in terms of rates and all that, and add a lot of value for the organization. Again, example of impactful observation or audits. Another point is about the risk identification, I would say. So that management, in case if the auditor is able to identify risk proactively and state the same with the audit committee or the KMPs and board of directors, then the decision makers can take a proactive steps rather than I would say post facto steps. That is another area where auditors can add a lot of value for the organization by taking or by identifying risk, I would say. So these are few pointers, and at the same time very important is about once you have audit observation, there should be responsibility, as Mr. Murli mentioned very clearly, and as Arvind also mentioned about we need to fix up responsibility by discussing with the client in terms of remediation, in terms of actions, the timelines for the same. That is a very clear cut the expectation for the impactful report from the management. Another area is about delivering the report in time as per the agreed timelines. Again, very important and crucial where many times audit firms, audit partners, they fail in such kind of deliver. They deliver report, but just before, let's say a couple of hours before audit committee or a day before audit committee, then again if you don't share a report with the respective or with the respective stakeholders, then again it becomes a meaningless, because you don't have that much time to read and take decisions on the same. So, agreed timelines is extremely important. Adhering to the agreed timelines is again very important. Top management, audit committees, they expect basically, and they pay attention to the concise and very specific summary report rather than, hundred of pages of report. That is again, the requirement from them. Audit recommendations should be practical in nature rather than theoretical. Again, that makes a lot of difference to have a very impactful audit report for the stakeholders. So these are my thoughts, Kaival.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So I guess this was probably one of the most important and core area that as a professional we need to understand that how we actually make an impact of all the work that we had done. So once we get the attention or the impact to the top management, we understand that we had already added lots of value for the audit team.
Yes.
So connected question only to Murli sir. Sir, we understand just recently that the stakeholders of the institute does not only want the auditor to report the audit observations, they want them to advise, they want them to direct and also to assist them. So we want to understand from your experience that as a professional, how we can link our practice of providing advisory work along with the assurance and also to strike a perfect balance as a role of internal auditor. Murali sir, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I lost this thing. Can you just come back?
Yeah, sure. So,
Yeah.
sir, we just recently understand from the Pramod sir that nowadays the stakeholders of the institution does not want internal auditor just to report the fraud or irregularities that they observed. They also want internal auditor to actively participate, advise, direct, and also assist them in all the areas that they delivered. So my question to you would be, as a professional or as a practicing professionals, as per your understanding or your experience, how as a professional we can link the practice of providing advisory service along with the assurance service, and along with that also to strike a balance as a role of internal auditor.
See, nowadays internal auditor is just not to give an internal audit report and move on. Okay, they need to stick to the grassroots level also to understand. See, idea of internal audit ideally is, why do I do an internal audit? Mistakes and errors do happen. An audit is supposed to find out that. But what are the control weaknesses that are there, and to ensure that this does not repeat again? That is the reason you have an internal auditor. He's not an external auditor just to give you that proof. Okay, so it's important that the processes have gone and changed. That is most important, and the controls have been put into those processes. That's the assurance that the internal auditor needs to give. So second time when the same internal auditor is appointed, or there is an internal auditor internally doing this audit, and the same points come, then it's a flaw that the process has not been changed or corrected. Okay, so somewhere it also falls on the internal auditor himself. So that is the reason nowadays it is very important. That's the reason I said in the start, and I again reiterate, that any person doing the internal audit has to be thorough with the processes, okay, before he does. It doesn't mean that he need to work in that area or something, but he needs to have a flow chart, understand the processes, understand the weaknesses where it lies, and then so that he can pinpoint it very clearly and then give assurance of what needs to be changed. He has to clearly bifurcate it into two parts. What is the risk, and where the risk may lead to some revenue leakage, because that has to be stopped immediately. That cannot wait for the second turn to come in. So auditor now has to give not only the points, but also the areas and also the best practices across in other organizations where he or she is working when it comes to external auditor. Internal audit team also within over here in Kotak has to find out with other life insurance companies what are the best practices going on there and how these points are avoided for them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the explanation. Moving on to our next question. My next question would be to Arvind, sir. Sir, we understand that the internal auditor must ensure that the audit report adheres to the standard of internal audit, that is SIA 4, for reporting issued by the ICAI. So how much relevance does this hold in your opinion? Is it mandatory to follow all the requirements of SIA 4?
Yeah, so I think the SIA 4 speaks about many things which practically also it is followed. I think SIA 4 speaks about in the para 5 of SIF 4, I think they specifies the elements to be covered in the internal audit report, which is generally what period, scope, executive summary, observation, recommendation, management comments, action taken report. So whatever we are discussing till now, that all things the SIA 4 also covers in their para 5, which they says that this all has to be reported in the internal audit report. Then the para 6 of SIA, again they specifies that what due professional care an auditor has to take while reporting. So it should be clear and crisp, factual should be reported. We have to specific, concise, timely, generate an action should have been generated out of that observation or something. And what audit procedure was carried out by that professional, that has to be that has to be spelled out, because there might be chances that you might not have caught everything, every error. You might not have found out the frauds also. The internal auditor, it's not bound to that the fraud has to be found out by the internal auditor. But what was the generally accepted audit procedure they had adopted, whether it was generally followed or not. So that all the para 6 of SIA specifies how the auditor has to take a due professional care. Then again, there are para 25 in that SIA, which specifies how the communication has to be done to the management. Again, that discussion, it is where the SIA speaks that discussion draft has to be given to the auditee to give him time to understand the draft of observation. Then you should have an exit meeting with the HODs and all to discuss the actions to be mentioned in the report. Then the formal draft and final report has to be released to the top level levels. And then NSI speaks about para 26, I think it speaks about the limitation to the report, that if there are any limitation on the scope which the auditor is not able to report on because of any limitation was imposed to him, or he could have a limitation in doing the audit, data availability or something. So that all has to be clearly spelled out in the internal audit report. So SIFO speaks about all these parameters which an profession in that like a internal auditor in a profession actually where he is giving an attestation report, or where his report is treated as a importance for either any regulator or board management. And so what care he has to take, what things he has to rely on. So all that speaks about the SIFO speaks about all that thing. So I think it is very much relevant, in fact, for all the professionals doing internal audit, and in practice for them it is very relevant SIFO. And in practical approach, what we generally it has been followed, whatever we are discussing, all that are mentioned in that SIA.
Thank you so much, sir, for providing the crisp and summary guidelines of the requirements that as a professional we must follow. So quickly moving on to our last or second last question to Pramod sir. Sir, we want to understand from you that many times a dispute arises between the auditor and the auditee. So how smartly, or we can improve, how smartly the auditor can improve the disputes in the exit meeting with the top management or the board of directors?
Yeah, again, interesting point here about dispute or difference of opinion, I would say. So there can be a various situation where internal audit team, again internal or external, can have difference of opinion or point of difference with the functional heads or the process owners, and both may have difference of opinion and interpretation issues, I would say, or understanding of point. So in such a situation, and there could be an account of various reasons, and auditor probably may not have understood the business complexities, processes, systems around that, controls around that, or maybe data gathering could be issue, or the field staff which is used for doing such kind of audit or observations may not be experienced enough to understand the complexities, processes, and they come out with their point of view, or based on their experience, their based on their past audits. Probably they may come out with observation which may not be agreed by the functional heads or the auditees. So in such a situation, important is that the manager of such a audit firm or a manager of a internal audit team, they have a discussion with the right member in the organization, and they should discuss very objectively rather than looking at a person or person specific. Important that they should talk with facts and figures, numbers, rather than giving a vague example, I would say. They should discuss very objectively about the process gap or the improvement opportunities. Maybe language should be positive, I would say, in putting a point rather than just saying negative and negative. Another area and finer aspect to this is basically, and I have experienced this, people don't like to put a name in observations or in audit reports and as a responsibility. So as far as possible, auditor should put a point in a form of a process gaps rather than pointing out very specific finger towards a person. And that too, particularly this issue is with senior people and senior leaders. They don't like their name appearing in the audit report, and that creates a lot of negativity. That creates a lot of unnecessary discussion. I would say so. To avoid, one can avoid that, and talk very specifically about the process and gaps in processes rather than pointing fingers to a person. I think that all these finer points avoids any kind of dispute in closing the audit report.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your real life experience on how we can really improve the discussion in the exit meeting. So moving on to our last discussion question for this session. So the question would be to Muralikrishna sir. Sir, we understand that lots of things are important in this internal audit report, but what according to you is the most important part of this entire internal audit report? Is it the executive summary that is written with high risk observation for the top management? Could you share any example of what would be the best practice that can be adopted in writing the executive summary?
Yeah, I agree that the executive summary is a very important and integral part. In fact, my favorite topic now, because as rightly put out by Pramod, that nobody wants to read 100 pages report and nobody wants their name to get in. So first of all, you want to see the executive summary to understand whether your name is there over there or not, or your department is there over there. That's most important thing. See, first of all, we need to understand what is this executive summary. It's just a brief section before the commencement of the detailed audit report. It summarizes the findings, recommendations, and also what is the action plan in minimal text. So the idea of having an executive summary is to briefly summarize all the observations, okay, and give an overall opinion of its risks to the entity. It is to give a very macro view and the risk that it carries to the company's business. So it should highlight the non-conformities only, but also it should not only highlight, but it should also include the, I would say, some positive points also to give equal credit to the processes that the internal auditor has audited. So normally you'll have any scope limitations or disagreements during the audit with the auditee should also be clearly highlighted. And it can end with an overall conclusion or opinion about this. Now, executive summary should highlight, as I said, only the key material issues, observations, controls, and weaknesses. Now, internal audit report normally, because it goes to the board and it also goes to the internal audit committee. So that's the reason this executive summary plays a very significant role. Okay, so it should also show why this point has come and with what is the root cause, why it has ended there, or why this observation should be there as an important one. So the executive summary should also identify any thematic issues that have been identified across the organization. An independent view of the management's reporting on the risk management of the organization. So the board or audit committee is responsible ideally for evaluating the performance of the internal audit function on a regular basis. So it gives them a perspective and an idea. So good practices normally are adopted by good internal audit firms or the big internal audit firms, which take that into consideration. But my belief is that the executive summary is important, but most important is the risk of that observation and its impact. That has to come very clearly in the executive summary. It has to be very clearly drafted. So in addition, the summary should also cover the risk which would make the person reading it. Like I am reading it as an external guy or an independent director who is not into the day-to-day management. So that simple writing should make me understand what is the risk that needs to be addressed and what are the controls that need to be put into it. So some good practices which can be adopted in writing the executive summary would be what is the risk impact on the organization, what is the corrective action undertaken, and update on the timelines, and which department is responsible for the observation and corrective actions, rather than naming that particular person, as rightly pointed out by Mr. Pramod. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So again, we understand that a lot of excellent internal audit work that actually goes unnoticed earlier. But now with the right approach to reporting, we understand that a lot of right enhancement can be done to the reporting, and it would actually add a lot of value to the stakeholders at the end of the day.
Correct.
So with this, I guess we had tried to cover maximum of the questions that was relevant to the topic, and I hope all the participants that were present over here had gained lots of knowledge and insights from the industry experts that were present over here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pramod sir. Thank you, Arvind sir. Thank you, Muralikrishna sir, for being present over here and sparing your time and insightful advices.
Thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you, Kaival. Thank you, Sanket. Thank you, Pinky. And thank you, Chintan Patel. Thank you so much.
Thank
Also,
you.
at the end, I would like
Thank
to
you.
request Pinky madam to say the vote of thanks for all the faculties present over here.
Yeah, it's a very pleasure to listen to all the panelists, and the panel was very good, and it's a mind-blowing panel. And it's our we are fortunate to hear all the three stalwart of the internal audit word in our this panel. So thank you, sir, to give us the time, and in your busy schedule you took out the time for us. So thank you, C. Pramod sir, Muralikrishna sir, and Arvind sir, for your insight you had given to us. It was indeed very good discussion, and I think I'm very clear that all the participants get benefited from this. The reporting requirement, how to do the report well prepared, and how the importance of report writing, drafting the report. So thank you, and thank you, Kaival, also to moderate the session very well. And you had all give the answer of all the queries, and I think no queries are turned unfold. So so thank you again. Thank you, Kaival.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so
Pleasure
much.
attending this.
Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Murli. Thank you, Mr. Arvind.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.